I pulled into the driveway after a 12-hour shift and saw trash bags scattered across the front lawn. Black garbage bags split open, my clothes spilling out onto the wet grass, my books, my shoes, my father's old watch tossed on the ground like junk. My stepbrother, Wesley, stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. "I told you, this is my house now. Your stuff's on the curb where it belongs." I knelt down and picked up a broken picture frame from the pile. My father's face smiled up at me through cracked glass. Wesley had thrown out everything I owned. He just didn't know he was standing in my house. My name is Brielle. I'm 36 years old. I work as a medical billing specialist at a regional hospital. It's steady work, nothing fancy. I'm the person behind the scenes, making sure the numbers match, the claims go through, and the systems don't collapse. Nobody throws a parade for what I do, but without me, nothing moves. My biological father, Raymond, died when I was 9, a car accident on a Tuesday morning. He kissed me goodbye before school and never came home. 3 years later, my mother, Donna, remarried a man named Gerald. Gerald brought his son Wesley into the family. Wesley was 2 years older than me, and from the moment he walked through that front door, he became the center of everything. Gerald's pride, my mother's new favorite, the child they invested in, bragged about, and protected at every turn. I was quietly pushed aside. My father's memory was slowly erased from the household. His photos came down, his stories stopped being told, his name was rarely spoken, as if saying it out loud would remind everyone that this family was built on someone else's grave. I grew up feeling like a guest in my own home. I paid rent the moment I turned 18, while Wesley lived free. I cooked, I cleaned, I maintained the house nobody thanked me for. I wasn't the child they chose. I wasn't the one they celebrated. But my father, even from the grave, chose me, and none of them knew it yet. If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own family, like you were doing everything right but still treated like you didn't belong, subscribe right now. Tell me in the comments if you know this feeling. Click hype because this story's about to turn. Let's go. The house everyone fought over was a large older home with 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and the biggest yard on the block. People in the neighborhood called it the mansion because it was the nicest property for miles. It originally belonged to my paternal grandmother, Grandma Opal. She raised my father in that house. I took my first steps on that kitchen floor. The walls still smelled faintly of her lavender soap and cedar closets, even after all these years. Everyone assumed Gerald inherited the house through his marriage to my mother. He acted like it too. He made decisions about the property, told neighbors it was his, and walked through those rooms like he built them with his own hands. Wesley moved back 8 months ago after a failed business venture, some app idea that burned through his savings in 6 months. Gerald welcomed him home like a returning hero. Suddenly, I was the problem, the inconvenience, the extra body taking up space. Wesley told me he was converting my bedroom into his home office. He stood in my doorway and said it like he was reading a memo. "You can sleep in the basement or find somewhere else. I need the space. Dad already said it's fine." I felt the air leave my lungs. This is my room. I've lived here my whole life. He looked at me like I was something stuck on his shoe. "Lived here doing what? You don't contribute anything. You're basically a tenant who forgot to leave." Gerald appeared behind him, arms folded, nodding. "He's right, Brielle. Wesley's got business plans. He needs the room. You're a grown woman. Maybe it's time to figure things out on your own." The next day, while I was at work processing insurance claims under fluorescent lights, Wesley packed every single thing I owned into garbage bags and threw them on the front lawn. My clothes, my books, my childhood photos, my father's watch, everything dumped on the grass like it meant nothing. I called my mother. I was shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I begged her to intervene, to say something, anything. She sighed, that long, tired sigh I'd heard my whole life. "Maybe Wesley has a point. You've been here too long, baby. It's time to grow up." My own mother told me to grow up, in the house my father's family built. But what none of them knew was that Grandma Opal didn't leave this house to Gerald. She didn't leave it to my mother. She left it to me. After Wesley threw out my belongings, he moved fast. He repainted my bedroom, he set up a desk, a new computer, and a bookshelf filled with business books he'd never read. Then he took down the last remaining photo of my father that hung in the hallway, the only one left in the entire house. When I asked about it, Gerald didn't even look at me. That picture's been up too long. This is my family's home now. We're moving forward. I found a photo crumpled in the recycling bin that night, my father's face, creased down the middle but still smiling. I pressed it against my chest and stood in the dark kitchen without saying a word. The refrigerator hummed, the house was quiet, and I had never felt more alone in a place I'd known my entire life. Then I discovered what they were really planning. I came home early one afternoon and heard Wesley and Gerald talking in the kitchen. They didn't hear me come in through the side door. Wesley's voice was excited, almost giddy. Once we lock the title down, we can pull at least 80 grand in equity. She won't know the difference. Gerald chuckled. We just need to get the paperwork cleaned up. Once it's in my name officially, we're golden. I stood frozen in the hallway, my bag still on my shoulder. They weren't just pushing me out, they were planning to steal the property entirely. Gerald had already been renting out the garage as storage space to neighbors for years, collecting $400 a month for years. He'd been claiming the property's tax deductions on his own returns, and now they wanted to take out a home equity loan on a house that was never theirs. The humiliation came publicly at a backyard barbecue Gerald hosted for neighbors and relatives. The smell of charcoal and grilled meat filled the yard. Wesley stood up in front of everyone and announced his new business that he was launching from his home office. People clapped. A neighbor asked where I was staying. Wesley laughed. She's figuring it out. Some people need a push to leave the nest, you know. Gerald added, loud enough for the whole yard. We love Brielle, but she's not exactly the ambitious type. She needs structure. Wesley, now he's got vision. I was sitting on a lawn chair at the edge of the yard, holding a plate of potato salad I had made for the event. Nobody looked at me. Nobody thanked me. I was invisible. That night, after everyone left and the house went dark, I went to the basement. Behind the water heater, tucked against the wall, was a locked metal box I'd kept hidden for 15 years. I sat on the cold concrete floor, opened it, and read through every page. The deed, the will, the transfer documents, all notarized, all legal, all bearing my name. For the first time in years, I smiled. They were upstairs celebrating the house they thought was theirs. I was downstairs holding the deed that said otherwise. What they didn't know was that Grandma Opal never trusted Gerald, not for a single day. She saw how he moved into her son's house and slowly erased Raymond from every wall, every conversation, every memory. She watched it happen, and she said nothing to them, but she said everything to her lawyer. Before she passed, Grandma Opal quietly revised her will with a local attorney, leaving the house and property solely to me, her only biological grandchild. The will was filed properly with the county. The deed was transferred into my name when I turned 21. I never told anyone, partly because I was afraid of the conflict it would cause, partly because I thought staying quiet was what family meant. But now, with Wesley and Gerald actively trying to claim the property and take out loans against a house they didn't own, I had no choice. I also had 15 years of property tax records proving I was the legal owner. Gerald's tax claims on the property were fraudulent. That wasn't just a family problem, that was a legal one. For 15 years, I kept quiet. I let them live in my house because I thought that's what family does. But the moment they threw my belongings on the lawn and tried to steal what my grandmother gave me, the silence was over. I drove 40 minutes to a small law office on the edge of town. The building was old brick with ivy crawling up one side. Inside, it smelled like leather chairs and filing cabinets. Mr. Theodore Grimes sat behind his desk, 81 years old, semi-retired and sharp as the day he passed the bar. He was the attorney who handled Grandma Opal's estate. He looked up when I walked in, and his eyes softened with recognition. "I was wondering when you'd finally come see me," he said. "Your grandmother told me this day would arrive." He confirmed everything. The deed was ironclad, filed and recorded with the county. I was the sole legal owner. Gerald's marriage to my mother didn't transfer ownership of property willed to a specific individual. It never did. Mr. Grimes pulled out a separate folder. "There's more, Brielle. what your stepfather's been doing, claiming tax deductions on property he doesn't own, collecting rental income without authority, attempting to secure a loan against your asset, that isn't just wrong, it's criminal. He agreed to represent me. He prepared a formal legal package, certified proof of ownership, a cease and desist order, and a 30-day eviction notice. Before I left, he leaned forward and said, "Your grandmother sat right where you're sitting and said, they'll try to take it. When they do, give her the ammunition. Consider this your ammunition." Meanwhile, Wesley had already contacted a contractor about kitchen renovations. Gerald was meeting with a mortgage broker. Wesley bragged to a cousin on the phone, his voice carrying through the thin walls. "This house is basically mine. Brielle's gone. We're about to cash in." Donna bought new curtains for Wesley's office, humming to herself, completely unbothered. They were measuring walls and picking paint colors. They had no idea I was measuring something else entirely, the distance between their arrogance and the truth. I told my mother I wanted to have a family meeting. "I just want to clear the air," I said, "talk about the living situation." Gerald and Wesley agreed immediately. They were smug about it, confident. They expected me to either beg for my room back or accept my eviction with a quiet nod and walk away. We gathered in the living room on a Sunday afternoon, the same room where my father's photos once hung on every wall. Now the walls were bare, new paint, new furniture, no trace of Raymond anywhere. The afternoon light came through the curtains and lit up the dust floating in the air like tiny ghosts. Gerald sat in the recliner like it was a throne. "Good, let's settle this. Brielle, we love you, but this house needs to work for the people who are building something. Wesley's got plans. You need to find your own path." Wesley leaned back on the couch, one ankle on his knee. "No hard feelings, it's just business." I nodded slowly. Then I opened the manila envelope on my lap and placed a document on the coffee table. "This is the deed to this house. My name is on it. It's been my name since I was 21. The room stopped. Gerald reached forward, picked up the paper and read it. His face went white. Line by line, I watched the confidence drain from his eyes. Wesley leaned forward. That can't be right. Dad, tell her that's not right." Gerald's mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. "This is a mistake. The house came through the family when I married your mother." "You married my mother," I said, cutting him off. "You didn't marry my grandmother. Grandma Opal left this house to me. Not to Mom, not to you, to me." I placed a second document on the table, the eviction notice, prepared by Mr. Grimes, legally binding and properly served. "You have 30 days to vacate my property." Donna stood up, tears streaming. "Brielle, you can't do this. We're your family." I looked at her. My voice was steady. "Family doesn't throw your dead father's photo in the recycling. Family doesn't dump your clothes on the lawn. You stopped being my family when you let them erase everything my father left behind." Wesley jumped to his feet. "You've been sitting on this for years? You let us live here and never said anything?" "I let you live here because I loved you," I said. "You repaid me by trying to steal my home. That's the difference between us. I shared. You took." I stood up. I picked up the envelope. I walked to the living room doorway, the same doorway where Wesley had stood with his arms crossed the day he threw out my things. I turned back one last time. 30 days. Mr. Grimes will handle the rest. 60 days later, the house was mine again. Gerald, Donna, and Wesley moved out. Wesley tried to fight the eviction briefly, but he had no legal standing, not a shred. Mr. Grimes handled it with the precision of a man who'd been waiting 15 years for this moment. Gerald's fraudulent tax filings were reported to the IRS. He's facing potential penalties and years of back taxes. Wesley's equity loan application was denied the same week. The bank confirmed he had zero ownership claim. His business plans collapsed before they started. Donna called me twice. The first call was angry, full of blame and accusations. The second was quiet, almost apologetic. I listened to both, but I didn't invite her back. I restored the house slowly. I started with my father's photos. Raymond's picture hangs in the hallway again, in a brand new frame, right where it always belonged. I converted Wesley's office back into my bedroom. I sleep there peacefully now for the first time in years, with the window cracked open and the sound of crickets filling the night air. I'm considering renting the extra rooms to young women who need stable housing, paying forward what Grandma Opal gave me, because she didn't just leave me a house, she left me proof that someone in this family always believed I was worth something. They threw out my belongings like I was nothing, but my grandmother knew exactly who I was, and she made sure the house always knew it too. If someone in your family ever tried to take what was rightfully yours, your space, your inheritance, your sense of belonging, I see you. That pain is real, and you didn't deserve it. Subscribe and share your story in the comments. I want to know who else has had to fight for what was already theirs. Click Hype to help this story reach others who need it. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and click Hype to help it reach more people who need to hear it. Your voice matters in our community, more than you know. Share your own experience in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story might be the one that helps someone else stand up for themselves. I'm listening.